Okay, now let's deal with work rate problems. Work rate problems. So work rate, what's a work rate? Well, it's the rate at which work is done in terms of time. So it's the amount of work you can do per unit time. The amount of work that can be done per unit time. So for instance, Steve can wash 3 cars in 2 hours. What is Steve's work rate? Well, Steve's work rate is 3 cars to 2 hours. And if you write that as a regular uh, work rate in terms of the units, that's 1.5 or 3/2 cars per hour. It looks like it says Bauer. It should say hour. So Steve can wash 1.5 cars per hour. 1.5 cars per hour. All right, here's another one. John can wash 3 cars in 1 hour. Or sorry, in 1.5 hours. John can wash 3 cars in 1.5 hours. What is John's work rate? Well, John washes 3 cars in 1.5 hours. Well, one and one half is the same number as 3/2. So that's 3/2. And when you divide a fraction by another fraction, it's keep, flip, change, right? You keep the first fraction, which is 3/1. You flip the bottom fraction over. So that's 2/, not equal, multiplied by 2/3. And when the 3's cancel out, this turns out to just be 2. So it turns out that John washes 2 cars per hour. 2 cars per hour. Okay, well, here's the real question. How fast can Steve and John wash the cars together? Wash the cars, or wash 1 car together. Wash 1 car together. Well, let me see. Here's how that's going to work. It's going to be Steve's work rate plus John's work rate equals the work rate together. That's how we're going to do it. So what was Steve's work rate? Steve's work rate was, if I remember correctly, 3 cars per 2 hours. So 3 cars per 2 hours was Steve's work rate. John's work rate was 2 cars per 1 hour. 2 cars per hour. So 2 cars per hour. And that has to be equal to the work rate together, which I want to know how long it takes them to do 1 car, and I don't know how long that is, so that's X hours. So 1 car in X hours. So those are those rates. A rate is pretty much the same thing as a ratio, but there's some stipulations on the units. So we can solve this then. It doesn't look like a proportion, but I can add the left hand side. Let me see. This is 3/2 plus 2/1. You would need a common denominator, which is 2. So you multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by 2 to get a 2 common denominator. So this would turn into then 3/2 plus 4/2 equals 1/x. Or that would say that 7/2 equals 1/x, which is actually a proportion. So the original problem was not a proportion, but when I added the 2 fractions on the left side, I got a proportion, single fraction on each side, and I can just cross multiply. So one cross product is just 7x, while the other cross product is just 2. So you divide both sides by 7, and you get x is equal to 2/7 cars per hour together, which means they'll do the 1 car in 2/7 of an hour. the one car in 2/7 of an hour. 2/7 is a little bit more than a quarter of an hour, a little bit more than 15 minutes. All right, so here's the last one. So Cindy Lou and Mary Beckwith own a landscaping company. Cindy can plant a garden in 3 hours. So Cindy's work rate is one garden in 3 hours, while Mary takes 4 hours to complete the same job. So Mary is one garden in 4 hours. If they work together, how long will it take? So once again, this is going to be Cindy's work rate, plus Mary's work rate equal the work rate together. That's how work rates work. They're additive. So Cindy's work rate is one garden in 3 hours. One garden, 3 hours. Mary's work rate is one garden, same garden, in 4 hours. One garden in 4 hours. So together, the work rate for one garden is an unknown X hours. One known X hours. So once again, we have this, which is not a proportion, but we can just add those fractions on the left side. The common denominator is 12. 12 is the common denominator. This one has to be multiplied by 4/4, while this one has to be multiplied by 3/3. So I get 4/12 for that one, plus 3/12 for this one is equal to 1/x. And 4/12 plus 3/12 is 4 plus 3/12, or 7/12. 7/12 is equal to 1/x. And since this one is now a proportion, I can actually cross multiply it to get 7x is equal to 12. And then I just solve by dividing both sides by 7. And x is equal to 12/7. So together, they'll plant that garden in 12/7 hours. 12/7 is less than 2. So while one of them took 4 hours to plant it, and the other one took 3 hours to plant it, if they do it together, they'll get it done in under 2 hours.